Everybody was so proud of me.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is year 0. This conversation between two Liberty truckers, Reed Coverdale and myself, is such a fucking disaster. It is a fucking train wreck. But we'd been trying to coordinate together and get Reed on the podcast for quite a while. And I'm going to go ahead and release it. But we were both so fucking tired. I hadn't completely recuperated from Childeberg. And Reed had just had a long fucking day on the road. And so we're both about 30, 45 minutes in. You can tell both of us just get to the point where it's almost like we can't even like think. We can't even speak straight. It's just, I don't even know how to explain it. We're trying to have this conversation that we've been wanting to have for quite a while. And the words are just not coming out of our mouth. And by the end, we're both just like, okay, dude, I can't do this anymore. So enjoy what you can get out of it. I thought it was still quite a fun conversation. I enjoyed talking to Reed. He's a really nice guy. So I really did enjoy it. It was just, both of us were just so fucking tired, man. So, as always, RyanBunting.com for all of your graphic design needs. Go to RyanBunting.com. Ryan Bunting is a great anarcho-capitalist and libertarian. He's also a great graphic designer. So, RyanBunting.com for all of your graphic design needs. If you want a podcast logo or anything else designed to resemble Free Man Beyond the Wall or Year Zero, go to RyanBunting.com and buy his fucking book. Thank you, Tom Burton, for the music. And remember, we are still looking to expand Beatrix's business. She is a virtual assistant. She does administrative work and basically runs multiple companies for small businesses. She does this in less than 40 hours a week for each company and is able to handle and maintain multiple clients at a time. So if you are a small business owner or you know a small business owner that has gotten to the point where their business is growing and they need someone to handle a few hours of administration every week, but they can't afford to hire someone full time, get a hold of me, TommySalmons@gmail.com. Those small businesses, as they're growing, they always need that helping hand, and they can't afford to take away from the tasks that actually earn them money by focusing on the administration. So if you or someone you know needs that assistance, needs that boost to their business, get in touch with me, TommySalmons@gmail.com. Enjoy the show. Jesus, I hate the fuck that thing. Goddamn thing started talking to me fucking a couple of weeks ago. It drives me fucking nuts. All right. I'm here with Mr. Reed Coverdale. What's going on, man?
Not much. How you doing, man?
All right. How's that Unity work going?
I don't know. People are attributing it to individuals instead of an idea. It's like we tried to institutionalize an idea, and I think we've got to decentralize it. And because when they think Unity, they think me or Dave Smith or a few of the other people who've kind of gone along with it, instead of thinking about the broader concept, I guess. So we're actually working on trying to figure out how to rebrand it and try to disassociate it from any person. And because I didn't even start my show to talk about Unity. That wasn't really the goal. It's just the thing that ended up being a prevalent issue when I ended up on the main stage. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it came for you like really fast too. It was like I had never even heard of you, and then like one day you're everywhere. I was like, who the fuck's this kid? Like,
Yeah.
What? Watch it. It's probably a fucking Fed.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, It's the perks of being friends with Dave Smith that gets you a lot of places fast. So
Yeah. No, but it's cool, man, because like I've kind of gotten to know you a little bit on Twitter, and just we've done your show together with Quincy and Top Lobster, and so and then Clint also, I've seen him around and gotten to know him a little bit. So I think it's really good, because one thing I try to like focus on whenever I'm talking to other podcasters, and maybe this is kind of my age, because I'm one of the older podcasters, at least in the circles that we run around in. I'm in my 40s. Pete's a little bit older than me, but
yeah,
so I look at it and I say, well, I kind of have my niche, and I know what my niche is. I know what I do. I know what my focus is. So I don't really worry about, other people getting broader audiences, because my show is designed for a broad audience, but it's going to be one of those audiences that stumbles upon this kind of show later on. And so I'm really like working on the art itself at this point in time. But you are focused on libertarians, whereas I'm not focused on libertarians. I'm focused on people that aren't libertarians and introducing them to libertarian ideas without trying to sell them on libertarianism. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, that's actually what my. Oh, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, so like when I look at the way that some of these shows are growing, I'm actually really happy for you guys. And I don't look at it as a competition. I look at it as we're all trying to fight this beast, this cathedral, and we're all kind of in this fight together. It's almost like one single network. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And I actually, I didn't start the show for libertarians. It was actually for normies, trying to bring them to libertarianism or libertarian ideas. I was just really in the right place at the right time for Dave to see what I was saying, and then that kind of, the Liberty Uniter is one of the names that I went under for a couple months. I didn't change the name of my show, but that was my name on Twitter, and that wasn't really the whole purpose of the show from the beginning. The beginning was actually I wanted to talk about some other topics that didn't necessarily have much to do with libertarianism. I wanted to talk about traveling and living within your means. Also wanted to talk about religion and a whole bunch of other stuff. But what you get famous for is what you're remembered for. And I've actually been trying to rebrand or move away from just being the guy who thinks libertarians should get along well, because I do have a lot more to say than that. I mean, to me, that's a very self-evident thing, that people who agree on 99% of the issues and hate the state should probably focus their energy, against the state instead of against each other. But for so many people, it's just a mind-blowing concept that they can't seem to grasp for some reason. But it's been really crazy the amount of growth I've seen. I just hit 5,000 subscribers on YouTube today. And I've got like 13,000 followers on Twitter. It's not really fair. I have more followers than people that definitely have been at the game longer and have a lot more important things to say than I do. But I think it just says a lot about the times, and also the technology and the ease of doing your own podcast. 10 years ago, it was way harder to get off the ground and people wouldn't listen to you as much. But when you lock everyone in their houses and you kill their employment and everyone has the ability to stream a podcast, it's a good environment for things taking off.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And I look at it as we're in a situation, like you said, they've kind of created this environment where people like you and I and Clint and Pete and all these guys will see these increases and see the following, increase. And it was it's been such a crazy year because like one of the things I left Houston 6 years ago, and I was like, these people are going to destroy the fucking dollar. I'm going to need to be on some land. I'm going to need to be growing my own vegetables. I'm going to need to have, a food source near me. So, my parents happen to be selling their property. So my wife and I bought it. So that's what we've been focusing on, on the weekends, whenever I'm home, that's what we focus on. We focus on working that land and getting our shit in order. And as fast as everything happened last year, I was like, wait. Can't y'all wait like 2 more years, man? I haven't even gotten to the point where I'm growing half my food supply. So just give me 2 more years. So they just 2 more. That's all I need. But these motherfuckers weren't waiting for nobody. So what are you looking at when it comes to your audience hedging their bets, the types of things they can do to better their life? Because kind of one of the things I look at, I don't think you have to be a prepper. I don't think you have to be a homesteader. But I think if you're an anarchist and libertarian, pretty much a human being, you got to be doing something outside the system to make sure that you're good. You know what I'm saying? People diversify their portfolios, but they don't diversify the way that they get their food. They don't diversify, all the ways that they are living their lives and being ready for a catastrophe. So like, what are the things that you really focus on in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I last year I talked a lot about how forget the government, how terrible the government was. Just look at your system for getting food or your system for buying supplies. Look at how centralized it is. Look at how completely helpless you were when shit went down. You couldn't get toilet paper, you couldn't buy groceries, you couldn't do anything. Like everything is from the top down. And we're both truck drivers, so we know how that works. Things aren't grown locally and eaten locally. They're shipped all over the country, all over different areas. And so I've encouraged people to get back to buying local and trying to become communities again. But on a personal level, I've told them to try to get outside of the dollar, and I'm not technically supposed to give financial advice. So, I always have that disclaimer: don't listen to me, go listen to someone else. But these are the people you should listen to, and this is what I would suggest you do. And then the other thing is, I just tell people to take care of each other and themselves, because we saw on full display that the government does not do that. They're not taking care of your neighbor, and they're not going to take care of you. And when they do, it's at the cost of giving hundreds of billions of dollars to corporations and overseas governments and all this crap. So stop waiting for something to come in and save you. Save yourself and save your neighbor. And I've really tried to drive home that individualism is not a selfish ideology. It's an independent ideology. It's the idea that it's your responsibility to take care of yourself and your friends and your family. It's not everyone else's responsibility. You do it. You get off your ass and you take the initiative. And I loaned out a lot of money to people last year who were in trouble. I have a lot of capital, so I was able to loan it out and help people. And, if you can do that, take care of your family and your friends and people instead of advocating for the government to do it, or even giving it to big charities. I'm not really a fan of big charities because you might as well just be giving it to some government program with how they skim it off the top and don't redistribute it very well. So I just want to see everything really decentralized and people living in communities, taking care of each other and themselves again. So I just encourage people to enable that in whatever way they can.
Yeah, no, yeah, this whole idea that libertarians or anarchists or some kind of like egoist, or it's so absurd. I get so tired of we don't view ourselves as atomistic. That's not the way we operate, and I have a lot in common with a lot of mutualists, but I don't consider myself a mutualist. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? I'm just an agorist, and that I'm doing my thing, and I'm going through my life, and I'm trying to take care of my family, my kids, and those people that are close to me in my life, and that's who I'm trying to deal with. So that's a message I really think is important, is getting through this fight. It's a constant battle fighting through this notion that we're so atomistic, and we're these crazy egoists that we got that only care about ourselves, and it's like, no, we're almost more, we're probably much more conservative than conservatives, in the idea that we feel like I got to get myself in order, and then my first responsibility is to my family, and then after that I can do for the community. That after that I can do for a broader audience or a broader people. But if I don't have my own house in order, then I can't do anything for you. I'm no good to you, right? Because then I'm doing it at
Yeah.
my own expense. And how long before you can't count on me because I can't be around because I've put myself in a hole. So how do you think we should message that? How do we attack that?
I think we got to live by example, right? Anyone can talk, but if like you said, if your house isn't in order, then your talk is worthless. So I think it's really important that we do live out our principles, and I really do. I mean, I've stayed out of debt my entire adult life. I've lived well within my means. I still have a 1994 Toyota pickup. It's got 327,000 miles on it. I just repair it when it, when something goes out on it. I just replaced the engine in it last year. I don't need a 2021 Toyota Tacoma for 40 grand or whatever it costs. Why? Like my truck still works fine, gets 20 miles per gallon. I didn't go to college because I didn't need to. By the time I was 24, I was making 120 grand a year. So just showing people that living your principles can make you successful, I think, is the best way to convince them that your message is true, because anyone can get up on a soapbox and scream their principles. But if you prove to them my ideas work, then they'll listen. And that's what we've got over the commies. What do the commies have to show for? Like, they can scream about their principles and their principles are consistent or whatever, but they don't work. We've got the right ideas. So I think we've got to put them into action. And, people should, we wanted to get to the point where when people think libertarian, they think self-sufficient or generous or upstanding person, or we have a really ugly image right now. Like you said, it's selfish or stupid, or I don't even know, like just someone who hoards ammo and doesn't care about his community. Like I don't think that's accurate at all. Most libertarians I know are more concerned about everyday issues than anybody else, and typically more educated on them too, and understand how we fix them. So I think the public image and actually living our principles are the two biggest things we can do for our cause.
Yeah, no, libertarians are just Republicans that want to smoke weed.
Exactly.
That's it. I got in an argument with, I don't know if I told you about this or if you heard this, but I got in an argument with somebody on Twitter one time, and they said, you're a libertarian. You're fiscally conservative. And no, what did they say? Oh, they said, I'm a libertarian. You call yourself a libertarian, but I'm a real libertarian. I'm fiscally conservative and socially liberal. I said, no, motherfucker, you are fiscally unpopular and socially awkward. Get that through your fucking head. Like, nobody likes you. People
Yeah.
don't like libertarians. Honestly, People don't. I mean, you work in the blue collar world, right? You know how people out in the real world are. Like they don't want to listen to your fucking philosophy all day. It drives me crazy. Like I've gotten to the point since last year, and no offense to any podcasts out there, so because there's some really great podcasts out there, really great podcasters, very smart, intellectual people. I've gotten to the point over the last year, I can't listen to philosophy anymore. I'm just not interested in it. It's like, that's not going to get me anywhere. Do you see what the fuck is happening to our goddamn country right now? Like, I don't care about your fucking philosophy. How do we put this, what is practical application that we're going to utilize moving forward? Because if we don't have the practical application, if we can't figure that out, then we're fucked, dude. And then it is every man for himself, and we're like a bunch of fucking chickens just scattered, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that philosophy is important, but if you can't tie it into real life, then it's dead. So that's actually one of the greatest things I get to do on my show is I get to occasionally tie it in to my job. You know, if I'm talking about government regulations destroying the workplace, I have actually got a ton of stories that I can bring up, or how much the police suck. I've got firsthand experience, and I'm sure you have a lot of it too, with how much the cops suck.
Yes.
And economics, environmental regulations, from past jobs I've had, I could tie it into that. So I think we actually do need to bring philosophy back to people. I mean, that's what we're missing. People don't have philosophy anymore. That's why they're so afloat and they're just catching whatever's right in front of them. But we've got to make philosophy tangible. You got to make people understand why it matters. You got to tie it into their real world issues. If you're just speaking theory without any empirical application, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I kind of, being at the Institute, I kind of have structured myself as being the gateway drug for Pete Quinones or Scott Horton or Keith Knight. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I do it intentionally because it's like, I know that I can listen to Scott Horton for 10 hours and learn all kinds of shit. I can listen to Pete Quinones and his podcast and learn all kinds of shit. But what I also know is that the guy I was just talking to down the road who's talking about there's going to be a revival, that Trump, the prophets are saying that Trump will be president again in August and all this shit. Like, Pete's not getting through to that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Like that dude's not going to listen to Scott. But we're sitting at a truck stop and this guy's saying these things to me. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I've been listening to people say that for the last 3 years. And every time it comes up, they're like, yeah, next week this is going to happen. And then next week comes around and they're like, yeah, okay, well, they had to postpone it because this, that, and the other. So it'll be next week. And I've been hearing this for 3 weeks. It's always next week. It's always tomorrow. It's always, sometime in the future. It's never happening right now. What are you doing today? What are we doing today to take care of ourselves? You can start teaching them libertarian philosophy through action, through like agorist action. And then once they're doing it, tell them, oh yeah, by the way, this is what you're doing, and hand them a book. And they'll be like, oh, fuck. And then they'll kind of get the idea. So you can kind of back them into the door, and you don't have to shove the philosophy down their throat.
Yeah, no, I like the gateway drug. That's I've called myself that too. I'm kind of I'm a blue collar guy. I don't have time to read book after book after book after book. I've got 1 foot in the philosophy and 1 foot in the real world, so I can bring the real world guys to the philosophers. That's kind of what my role is.
You do know that most of the audio books on Mises, most of the books on Mises are on audio. I listen to a lot of that, like over the last, like when I first discovered libertarianism in like 2015, I listened to Mises Institute audiobooks for like 3 years straight. That's all I did.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Rothbard lately. I'm trying to get through Man, Economy, and State, but honestly, I'll space out for an hour and I'll forget that I'm listening to something.
Yep.
That the thing chug trying to get through it. But
I have found
like I mean I could.
I found that all books on economics are hard to listen to. Like if I read them,
Yeah.
it's better for me. But I've tried to listen to a lot of them, and no, a good one though, a good one you can get. I don't know if you checked it out. It's Walter Block's "Defending the Indefensible."
Yeah, I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's really good. It's on audio. You can get it for free at Mises.org. Yeah, it's
Okay.
really good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What you were saying about Man, Economy, and State? I was just like, hey.
Oh no, I mean that one's just I've tried listening to it and I'll just literally space out. And so I could listen to the whole thing, but I won't retain any of it. I've got to like I'll realize I've been spaced out for about 15 minutes. I'll have to rewind it and keep going. But yeah, being a truck driver, that's the only way I can read books. I don't have time to read the hard copies after work or whatever, especially doing the podcast and trying to have a life outside of that too. But most blue collar people definitely don't have time to read, book after book after book. If they're a welder or something, they can't read while they're welding. So I'm kind of the perfect middleman. I understand the philosophy, but I also understand people who don't know any of it. So I can introduce them to people who will blow their minds. And it's kind of what my role is, I think.
Yeah. What I like, I think I mean, if I have time to sit down and read, I will remember everything I read. I will not be able to tell you what book it was I read. I won't be able to tell you who wrote it, but I can tell you everything I've read. but what I like about podcasting and what I think I'm actually able to accomplish with podcasting is bringing on people like a Mike Meharry or the Huntsman or some of these guys that a lot of people never really heard of that have some really brilliant things to say that they can utilize in their everyday life, right? So we have a lot of people that in the movement that are focused on getting the biggest name, out there to gain more traction. And I understand wanting to gain a bigger audience and make more money and this, that, and the other. But there are a lot of people out there that no one has heard of that are really fucking good. Really fucking good. We were talking about the supply chain earlier. A guy you need to talk to, and I can get you in touch with him if you want to talk to him, is the Huntsman. He's a supply chain expert. I had a great conversation with him. He was such a nice guy, and I learned a lot. And he says this supply chain, it's not coming back for 2 years. You know? So this is information that people need to retain and be like, okay, I must act accordingly. Like I have to change things because nothing is normal anymore. So yeah, there's always a place for people like you and I, and we have a lot of time to think, man. Like honestly, like we're driving, we're staring out that fucking wind. We got that windshield time. Like it's like sometimes it's like I don't want to listen to anything. I don't want to hear nothing. I just want silence. I want to drive for the next 5 hours and just reflect on everything that's happening around us. And a lot of people don't have that luxury, So there are advantages to trucking. Scott's always told me every time we talk, he's like, "Damn, dude, I should have been a truck driver. Instead, I drove a fucking cab, and then I became this bitter old man on the internet who's cursing about war all the time." He's like, I used to be funny, right?
No, you're right though. I mean, we do have a lot of time, and I don't know about you, but I'm someone who I don't really blank. I don't really blanket. I don't really space out. When I'm spacing out, it's because I'm thinking about something.
Right.
So like when I'm trying to listen to Man Economy and State, something will pop into my brain and I'll start thinking about that and not listening to the book anymore. That's what my problem is. I don't understand people who literally just space out and don't think about something. I wish I could do that, but I actually have trouble falling asleep at night because my brain's always turning and I'm always thinking about some concept or something that happened. And but yeah, definitely driving gives you a lot of time for introspection. And I think that's why we sound autistic sometimes, because we've just had all this time to think about it. So people are like, wow, you're weird, man. Like, you actually thought about this.
Yeah, no, I'm with you about the falling asleep thing. I'll lay in bed and I'll be as tired as I can, and I'll turn off all the lights and I'll lay back and I'll close my eyes, and then it's like an idea or something pops into my head and it's just churning and churning
Yeah.
and churning. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. But see, this happened to me even before libertarianism. This
Oh yeah, me too.
because I was writing poetry and short stories and working on novels and things like that I haven't released, but I will, I promise. But so so I would have this idea for a story, and I would come to a part where I would have like writer's block on one particular part, and I'd be going to bed and it would come to me, or I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd have to get up and write for the next 2 hours. I'd wake up at 3 o'clock and have to write for 2 hours, and then have to be at work by 6 o'clock or some shit like that. I'm fucking miserable, you know, like, but
Yeah.
but yeah, there's there's this. I don't know, man. I'm trying to piece together in my head, and it's something I've been working on like since I started my podcast. And my first slogan for my podcast was ideas plus action. Okay? So I had recognized immediately when discovering libertarianism, there's entrepreneurship and libertarianism work hand in hand. And I couldn't place together exactly how they worked hand in hand, right? And then I discovered through Sal and Pete, I discovered Konkin. And I started reading Konkin. And I was like, oh, okay, so agorism, I get it. I would say, so agorism is libertarianism plus entrepreneurship, and you got agorism. Okay, so that's great. But what I'm trying to figure out is how to connect with the shade tree mechanic, how to connect with the lady who's running a daycare center out of her fucking living room and not reporting it to to the feds. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, how do we get to these people? Because these are the people that are searching for a way out of the system. They see they're being robbed. They see the criminality of it. They see that it is victimizing them, and they're working outside of it. Those are the people I want to be talking to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that what you got to do is you got to talk about what they care about. There's this stupidity among libertarians that we want them to care about what we care about the most, and that's just not effective. Like, I mean, I care about war more than anything else, but someone who has been brainwashed into thinking that we're fighting terrorism so that we have a free country here and we're trying to spread freedom and democracy around the globe or whatever, they're not going to care about war. Number one, they care about their wages or their health care or the environment or something, like, okay, so instead of coming up to them all hot and bothered and furious that they don't care about the same thing that you do, you've either got to explain to them why what you care about is more important, or I think, which is more effective, is to tell them that you have a solution for the problem that they care about the most. And then you can introduce them to the overall picture and say, well, see, this is why this is so screwed up. So instead of just, screaming "end the Fed" in someone's face who has no idea what that means, talk to them about why their wages aren't what they should be anymore, talk to them about inflation, tie it into the Federal Reserve, and then you can convince them that we need to end the Fed. But just jumping the gun, going right to the conclusion and being angry that they're not on the same page as you is never a good strategy for evangelism, I don't think.
The have you ever heard of the Texas Nationalist movement?
Yes.
Okay, so the president of the Texas Nationalist movement gave a speech whenever Kyle Biederman first introduced the legislation for Texas. It failed. They actually blocked it in committee, but whatever. But he gave a speech, and what he said was the average wage, because of like the energy that's produced out of Texas, and that the average wage of a Texas citizen is somewhere around like $41,000 a year or something like that. Like if you take like the most impoverished, the richest,
Right.
you got, the average is about 41,000. And he said, had the federal government not instituted regulatory capture and all these regulations onto the energy sector and allowed Texas to boom the way it was intended to boom, not inflated the money supply, not done all these like horrible things to the economy for the greater good, of course, that the average income of a Texan would be $300,000 right now. So you're talking to, I mean, like, what is that? Like, that's what, like 400% difference or some shit? Like, what the fuck, dude? And so getting people to wrap their minds around something that, like that numeric is, libertarians want to focus on that. They like, it's what you were saying. This is your pet project and you're throwing it in their face. But, you know, anybody who markets or has ever tried to market knows that you're not selling the product you have. You're selling the product they want. And so how are you going to sell that product? You know? And so we get to change our message every day. We have a podcast. We're talking all the time. We're always chatting with people. I can't tell you how many times my podcast has made a shift, turned here, taken this turn there, because my mind's changing. My thinking's changing. I'm looking at the world around me going, okay, I got to like learn how to, you know, act towards this. And if I want to learn how to react towards this or work around this, then I should be talking to my audience about this, right? So, but there are so many libertarians, and this episode's going to come out from me at Childerberg, where I'm on Patrick McFarland's show. I'm just going to warn you, I was drunk all fucking day. I went to bed drunk the night before. I woke up 4 hours later, still fucking drunk, and I started drinking again. So, I mean, that was just Childerberg. It was fun. I had a blast. I loved every person I met there. Not a one person was a bad dude. I didn't like, everybody was cool. It was fun. But just get that out of the way. But I'm going to be on Patrick McFarland's show. And one of the things I was saying, I was like, look, we have a problem in the libertarian movement. And part of the reason I kind of distance myself from the term libertarian is because we have these people that are too worried about being the smartest fucking person in the room, and they're not so worried about actually accomplishing a goddamn thing.
Right.
And that bugs the fuck out of me. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's super annoying. Like, I don't care how many books on theory you've read. I care how many people you've convinced that we shouldn't be giving $4 billion a year to Israel. You know, that matters to me more than how many books you've read. Or, you know, if you can convince people that raising the minimum wage to $20 an hour isn't going to solve employment issues and is going to, you know, have an inverse effect on poor people, you know, that matters way more than your resume. You know, what books you've read, what theory you're well versed in. It doesn't matter. What matters is um, what you can convince people of, or what you can show people by living a certain way. So yeah, the intellect only goes so far. The intellect, I mean, this is biblical, even though I'm not a Christian, but faith without works is dead. I think that's very true. If you believe in something and you know it inside and out, but you don't do anything about it, then who cares? I really don't have much use for you or much interest in what you have to say. The guy who's actually getting stuff done and drawing attention and changing people's minds, I want to hear what he has to say.
Well, I mean, that's a guy that's he's boots on the ground. You know what I'm saying? He's actually out there doing something. You
Yeah.
know, he's not sitting there self-indulging, which is what a lot of this bullshit is. A lot of it's self-indulgence. All right, like
Yeah.
yes, there are some brilliant fucking political thinkers, anarchist thinkers. There's some brilliant people. I mean, shit. I mean, all weekend I was calling Ace Archist Lysander Jr. instead of Spooner. You know, like, but I mean, because the kid's fucking brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have him on, and we're gonna be chatting about some stuff. And but he's such a humble individual. Like when you meet him, he's not arrogant. He's not cocky. He's just like it's really sweet, introverted, smart guy. Like and it's like okay, yeah, like I want to promote you because you are just not only brilliant, but you're great. You're just a great person. Most of these people come across as cocky, and I look at that and I'm just like, yeah, okay. All right, yeah, I can argue with anybody. I can debate anybody, yada, yada, yada. Okay, yeah, I've been hearing that a lot. And I won't debate you, bro, because I'm just not interested. I don't have the time for that. I would rather my conversation have some productive, capacity to it. And this brings me, because this is something I wanted to ask you about, because like you and I, being truckers, we're just going to shoot straight from the hip on these difficult subjects. So this brings me around, like that we want that capacity to actually accomplish something. Okay, so as somebody that identifies more of an agorist, I have no interest in voting. I could see situations where things pop up locally where I might get into that, and I might do some local electioneering or working locally in politics. But nationally, I'm like, fuck y'all. I just don't give a shit about y'all. Um, there's been a lot of debate on Liberty Twitter specifically, but there was the Tho Bishop and the Dave Smith discussion on Lions of Liberty. There are people that are not ecstatic about libertarian, like the Mises Caucus, or like popular libertarians like yourself or Clint, or going after overtaking the Libertarian Party. Now, I thought this was quite an interesting point I heard. I want to say it was Popular Liberty that I heard make this point. I could be wrong. But he said, prior to the Mises Caucus, the Libertarian Party was turning into the woke party. All the woke people were leaving the Democrat Party and kind of congregating in the Libertarian Party. And that if the Libertarians would have congregated in the Republican Party, given all those fucking losers the woke party, we'd never have to hear from those motherfuckers ever again. And I was like, that might be an interesting point there.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate it is, though. I don't think many people joined the Libertarian Party. Like, even if that's true, it wasn't enough to make a dent in the Democratic Party, But I am a fan of using the Libertarian Party as a vehicle for liberty. And I think a lot of people take that a little bit too literally, and they think that it means we're going to win the presidency next time with the Mises caucus or something. I don't think that. And I'm kind of on the same page as you nationally. I will still vote just for the hell of it, but I don't really see the use in it. I mean, I think Congress is pretty dead. Justin Amash was a pretty good window into Congress over his last year in there, and it was just a joke. I mean, there's no process to anything. They tell you what you can get away with voting against the party on, and I mean, it's just a mess. I don't see fixing that place. And then, if you don't kowtow to AIPAC, you won't get elected anyway. They'll sink your campaign. So I really think it's about going after local state houses, governorships, things like that. And I still believe in voting at that level. I think you can make a difference. I think if you have a state representative versus a libertarian state representative versus some statist, I think that voting for them is a good idea. And I don't see voting as violence if you're just voting to put someone in there who wants to remove state power. There's some people who think that taking part in the system at all is capitulating or advocating violence. I only see that if you're choosing for the lesser of two evils. If someone's in there and their only goal is to really dismantle the state, I'm all for that. So the Libertarian Party, I don't know, it's the third largest party in the country. There's a lot of great people who have joined it. The Republican Party is just, I look at it as so lost, and I don't know if it was ever really being close to a libertarian bastion of freedom. But especially now, it's just, I look at the Republicans as controlled opposition. The Democrats will put forward some crazy spending bill or some crazy gun control idea, and then the Republicans come in and say, whoa, that's too far, let's settle for this. And then they'll choose something right in the middle, and the idea is to try to sell it as though it's a more reasonable approach. So instead of a $5 trillion spending bill, we'll do a 3.2. All right, let's settle on 4.1. And that's supposed to be a victory somehow. So I don't think using the Republican Party is viable anymore. And obviously the Democratic Party, that's an even bigger joke. So as far as whether or not we should be involved at all in the political system, I don't think that people pay attention outside of elections. So we can all have our podcasts, write our books, disengage from the system as much as we can, but no one's going to know we're doing it unless we run somebody for something. That's where everyone starts paying attention. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. And most of the agorists now were brought into that movement by Ron Paul running for president, and they tend to forget that that's how it all happened, and they demonize people who think that we should try to do something like that again. It's like, hey, we need numbers. We don't have the numbers now, and we need more people to get on board with this line of thinking. And I really think elections are where you draw people's attention to it. This certainly was how my attention was drawn to it. Well, I can't hear you. I don't know if you're.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
I turn my mic off. That's my cough button. I don't have the like fancy little cough button up here. I just turn the mic off.
Yeah, right.
So, that was okay. So there's a lot of agorists. You're right. They came in through Ron Paul.
Right.
So the argument they'll make, well, Ron Paul was running as a Republican because he was aware that the Libertarian Party could never make an influence, never make a dent, that he could do more good from within the Republican Party than he could from within the Libertarian Party. And I'm not arguing with you. I mean, I don't even know what I think about this. I'm kind of like, one way or the other. 6 one way, half a dozen another, me. But for audience sake, so excuse me. So what they're trying to say is, all right, They believe that participating in the political system of this violent regime and
Hmm.
playing on by their rules on their playing field is a violation of principles.
Right.
If you're going to go ahead and violate your principles, then why would you half ass it with a party that no one is going to pay any attention to, nobody's going to hear the message of, when you can throw yourself into the primaries of the GOP and get on the stage like Ron Paul did, which is where he made all his gains, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the argument.
Yeah, I think times have changed. I think Ron Paul made the right decision. I don't think he should have run on the Libertarian Party in 2008 or 2012. Um, a lot of people think Trump made the Republican Party better. I disagree with that. I think Trump made big government popular among Republicans. I really do. Like, I think, it was exemplified when the 2000, the Democrats are only going to do checks this big. My checks are going to be twice as big. And the Republicans loved it. And, they love protectionism. They love the idea of a border wall. They love like all this big government, big spending stuff. And I don't see them going back. They never were really at a small government conservative level, but it was at least popular to talk about. It's not even popular to talk about it anymore. Now it's like the only reason the Democrats suck is because they're pro China or they're pro Green New Deal. It's not the amount of money they're spending or the amount of government they're creating. It's what they're doing with it that the Republicans don't like. The Republicans are completely fine with spending trillions of your dollars. They just want to spend it on their own things in their own way. So I just don't see them as a viable option for libertarians anymore. Yeah, maybe they're a little bit more susceptible to the anti-war stance, but not much. It was a very marginal gain. It was more just like, okay, we don't really believe in this empire stuff. It wasn't really an anti-war message that they took on. And then as soon as we bomb Soleimani and threaten to go to war with Iran, then all the war drums come out. All the Republicans were all for that. And so you realized it was pretty surface level. So, I mean, that party's just become so bastardized and so ridiculous. I don't think that you could run someone in that party who would make a dent anymore. I don't think Ron Paul would get close to getting the nomination in that party. So I don't know. I just think the Republican Party's a lost cause. I honestly think the Democrat Party is almost as viable as the Republicans at this point. They're just they gave up on every major issue that they're supposed to be good on. They just ceded ground. It was so funny. People saying that we should vote for Republicans in the Senate to achieve gridlock. And this was a month after they passed a bill where I think 2 Democrats and 59 Republicans voted against it, and everybody else voted for it. So most of the Republicans, most of the Democrats all voted for this giant stimulus bill that none of them read. And then we're told, oh, yeah, well, we need to vote for Republicans. So there's gridlock. It's like, what gridlock? There is no gridlock. They're the same.
So here's something that popped in my head when you were talking. What if we are we going to, not what if, but are we going to see a situation where like a Tulsi Gabbard and a Justin Amash and a Dave Smith and what the wrestler guy that was the governor for a while, whatever his
Ventura.
Yeah, that lispy guy, are all going to be the faces of the Libertarian Party. Like, do you think, are you white pilled to the point to believe that all the the normal average people will flee the Democrat and Republican Party, and not average people, but average politicians, those that can probably agree on 70% of the Bill of Rights or something like that, you know, and it kind of turn against the Republican and the Democrat Party. Do you see that as a viable option in the future for the Libertarian Party?
I don't know if it's viable. The problem is I think a lot of people don't want it. Like they wouldn't want Tulsi Gabbard to become a libertarian, or Jesse Ventura. A lot of them didn't even want Justin Amash to become a libertarian. I mean, Jesus.
I like Tulsi more than I like Amash, but that's because she's cuter than he is.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if someone like Tulsi became interested in the Libertarian Party, that she should be welcomed in. I don't think she should be the nominee for president or something like that. But if you have someone with a lot of name recognition who has a lot of libertarian leanings, of course you should be welcoming to them. That doesn't mean you're going to say, yes, you represent everything we believe and you're a bastion of liberty. But if you can bring them in and then make them better, I look at that as a win. I mean, you got to remember who we're dealing with here. I mean, Americans are retarded. So if you can get high profile figures, like I think even better than politicians is getting actors or athletes to become libertarians. I mean, if you can get Vince Vaughn to officially join the Libertarian Party, or I don't know, Elon Musk, or, you know, choose your celebrity. If you could get them to do that, that brings a lot more attention than any politician ever would. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I understand why some people have some pushback because they think it's going to water the message down, but I don't think that it has to. I think that if you have people who are interested in the ideas of liberty, you should be welcoming to them and try to make them better. And I think I think a lot of it comes from Bill Weld. People have a sour taste in their mouth from having him as the VP nominee. And I agree that was a huge mistake. So I don't think we should run non-libertarian people for president, but having them join the movement, or at least having interest in it, I think is a good thing. And we should meet them where they are and try to pull them closer, I guess.
So much of the focus of my podcast is to point out abuses of power and how bad things have gotten and the direction in which we're heading as a society. And it can be a real black pill. I've partnered up with Richard Grove to offer my listeners an opportunity to sign up to his Autonomy Course. The Autonomy Course is designed for people looking for solutions, people that want to shape their own future, people that are not willing to be at the behest of large corporations or the United States government or the banking system. The Autonomy Course is designed for those of you who wish to have complete control of the reins of your life, who are looking to be successful, to thrive and not just survive, to provide for your family by utilizing your existing skills and learning how to market and sell those skills in order to be your own boss, or learn new skills in order to leverage that into a new career opportunity. So if there's a job out there you've been trying to get or you've been wishing you could get, but you just don't have the skills for it, the Autonomy Course is the place for you to start, to learn how to land that position, to learn how to market yourself better, to gain confidence, and to be surrounded by a community of like-minded people that will encourage you and help you along the way. So use my affiliate links and go check out the Autonomy Course. It could be right for you.
Well, yeah. Let's say, I'd say at this point in time, Justin Amash agrees with the Republican Party 35% of the time, maybe 40% of the time. probably agrees with the Libertarian Party 85-90% of the time, right?
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard, I would say the same with the Democrat Party. She's 35-40% of the time she's on board with whatever they're doing. Probably agrees with the Libertarians 75-80% of the time, right?
Yeah.
So even if they don't join the party, let's say you get these endorsements, right? I mean, just endorsements. You could actually do something. You get, Clint Eastwood is openly has called himself a libertarian. I've never heard him once support the Libertarian Party.
Right.
You get an endorsement like that, right? I mean, come on, man. You get Dirty Harry on your side. Who's going to beat you? I mean, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it's a lot of fun, to think about these things and say, yeah, we could do that. But the problem is the machine is all against that. They are never, ever going to accept the libertarians getting any kind of recognition or acknowledgement. They want it to be a binary fight, right? So breaking through that propaganda, a $1 trillion a year propaganda machine, is the big fucking problem. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do here, right?
Yeah.
So you would need these people to put their necks out on the line and risk being quote unquote canceled and their careers ended in order to do this.
Yeah. I mean, we have an aversion to even having Eric July or Hotep Jesus speak somewhere. I mean, Jesus, we're so far from being where we should. I mean, we should have All That Remains playing rock songs at our friggin' convention, like, why not? Like, why not embrace this pop culture, embrace the popularity of certain figures? Like, we're so bad at messaging, and this comes down to being the smartest guy in the room who doesn't get anything done. Like, we want to stare down our nose at all these people and act like we're just so much better than them, when if we actually had them on our side, we could actually do something. And I think that is how you would see us break the system. Like, if you have enough people who have power on our side, then you'd see a switch, because the people with power are not politicians. They're just not. I mean, they, at least as far as influential power goes, it's pop culture, it's singers, it's actors, it's athletes. If you can get one of them to say, that COVID-19 regulations are stupid or something like that, that is way bigger than Thomas Massey saying it. I mean, Thomas Massey says it 10 times a day. Nobody cares. If you get Oprah Winfrey to say, yeah, this whole COVID stuff needs to end right now, that's a big deal. So I don't think that we should be just turning away anyone who has interest in us, because they hold a lot more influential power than any politician we could ever run.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that you constantly hear is politics is downstream from culture.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy Ryan Bunting, really good friend of mine, did my logo art, and did Pete Quinones logo art for his podcast as well. He wrote a fiction book called Project Manicore, which was good. I mean, there was nothing wrong with it. It was a really good book. It was an easy read. I read it in like 3 days. I rolled like right through it. Great little fiction story that you run through and it sticks with you, and you're like, wow, there's a lot in there that very libertarian, dystopian, themed book that you could get a lot out of. And Top Lobster, all the art that he's putting out there and this, that, and the there are people that are involving themselves, and we have to learn. We have to figure out a way to promote them better. You know, because these guys are going to attract people to you and I and Pete and Scott. And Scott, I mean, Scott is probably the most important voice out there, you know.
Yeah.
And the amount of people, like whenever he was on Tim Pool's show, the amount of people that were talking trash, it almost blackpilled me a little bit. But then I was like, you know what? There are a million people not making comments right now that are watching this going, shit, man. This dude fucking knows a lot. Maybe I need to read something on this shit, you know? And that's a fucking white pill, you know, if you ask me. I mean, that's a huge white pill. Yeah. So when, you know, you bring up All That Remains, you know, I got my buddy plays in a band in Colorado called Havoc. He's a vocalist, David Sanchez. I've interviewed him on this show. We've become really good friends. You know, he would do stuff like that too, man. He would love to be involved in stuff like that, you know? And so the people that are putting on these libertarian movements or putting on these activities, they need to start inviting these guys, you know, and getting them involved in this, you know? I mean, I talked to David. I had actually invited him to Childeberg. The only reason he didn't come is because he's in Hawaii. You know, it's like, all right, well, you know, I'm not gonna be mad at you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, someone like Ryan Dawson, he calls himself a libertarian, but he's never been part of the Libertarian Party or anything. But I mean, you saw over the last few weeks before he got nuked on Twitter, like I was injecting him into the conversation everywhere, and he was interacting with Libertarian Party accounts, and it was exciting. Like people were excited, they were interested in seeing what was going on, and that got some pushback from some people because they don't like some of the things he said. And you know, that's just so dumb to me. If you could have this electric experience of bringing someone who has a ton of libertarian ideas, whether it's Eric July or Maj Touré or, you know, Phil Labonte or, you know, like all, you know, just all these people who attract an audience and create excitement. You should want them in your events, on your side, in your advertising, you know, and like all these idiots who are like, oh, they're going to push people away. Well, you're going to attract a lot more people than you're going to push away. You're not attracting anyone with some Cato Institute nerd who's just, you know, spouting platitudes. That doesn't excite anybody. You excite people with people who have something controversial or interesting or unspoken beforehand to say. You know, that's what's really going to catch people's attention. And we gotta stop listening to the woke people in the movement, because they don't know what attracts people. Like this idea that, oh, we're just gonna have this message that's kind of boring so we don't scare anyone away. It's like, yeah, but we're in a burning house or a sinking ship or a crashing airplane, whatever analogy you want to use. We don't have time to not scare people. Like we need to use some messaging that's going to wake people up and get them to care. And you know, these electrifying figures do that, and we should stop alienating them.
Exactly. I like Ryan Dawson a lot. First time I ever heard of him was on Pete's show, and I was like, wow, this kid's super smart. Like knows his shit. Now I didn't realize, like, when I called him a kid, I didn't realize he was probably my age. But you know,
right.
But that was my first thought about it. You know. And I listen to him whenever he's on your show or on Pete's show. He's got great things to say, you know? And he's got a little bit of an edgelord side to him. He likes to make some, like, off-color jokes. But, I mean, Jesus Christ, we're all fucking men here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, 90% of the jokes made when I was either in the military, oil field, or driving truck are worse than anything Ryan Dawson has ever said in his life. Like, I guarantee it. You know, and so it's like these people don't live in a real life. They don't live in reality. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, I mean on the job site, the things that I've said would have, I don't know, some of them probably could have gotten me arrested. Honestly, some of the jokes I've said if they were published on social
At
media.
least in Britain.
Yeah, man. Like
locked up with Count Dankula.
Anything that Dave Smith has said on Legion of Skanks, or anything that Ryan said before his channel got nuked, or anything Pete has said, yeah, it doesn't even come close. I mean, maybe stuff they've said in private is as bad that I haven't heard, but man, when you're on a job site with a bunch of guys who hate each other and are cold and tired and want to go home and just have to, it's only Tuesday and you got 3 days left before you can finally call it a week. Like, you need some fucked up humor to get you through that sometimes. And then, I've worked with Mexicans, and this one job, it was Mexicans, Somalians, people from Burma, people from Thailand, people from everywhere. And I mean, the most racially insensitive jokes you've ever heard in your life were said on that roof all the time, because we were roofing, and just zero sensitivity, completely callous humor. And I don't know, like, you just, it was what you use to get through the day. I mean, people don't understand that dark humor can sometimes be a tool for dealing with anger or stress or even sorrow or trauma. I mean, it can be used in so many different ways, and letting the woke people control the narrative is ridiculous, because they don't understand real people. Real people are like you and me. I mean, they're dark and they're corrupt and they think about fucked up stuff, and when they hear us talk about it, it actually makes them realize that we're one of them. We're not some uppity scholar who thinks that we know everything.
Yeah, if most of you motherfuckers heard the way me and my wife talk to each other in private and joke with each other, like calling each other bitch and dick and all these, like, just fucking around, like, y'all would be like, oh, y'all hate each other, but no, we love each other. We have a blast. We're having a good time. Yeah. And you gotta, if you can't see, I always grew up in this situation. We're gonna cut it. We're gonna be ending here pretty soon. But I always ended up in this situation where I grew up in this situation where everybody would say, well, if I'm not picking on you, I don't like you. Mm-hmm. Right. And now if I'm not allowed to pick on you, or I don't like, I just don't get it. It doesn't compute. Like, it's like, no, I'm fucking with you because I like you, man. Like, if I'm not fucking with you, if I'm not calling you a dirty skank, like once a week, then there's a problem. You should be like, dude, we should hug it out, like whatever. But so it makes no sense to me, the oversensitivity of this entire culture.
Yeah, I think none of them have to work. They've all gone to college and then gotten a part-time job bagging groceries to pay off their student loans. I was working 45 hours a week when I was 16. During the summers, and then during the school year, I worked 2 hours a day after school, and then 11 hours on Saturday, and sometimes 5 hours on Sunday. And then when I turned 18, I was working 50 hours full time right away. Right. So I don't know, like I was just used to that culture. I was used to people being rough on you, and used to people expecting you to be able to pick up the slack and get to work and do your job. A lot of people just aren't used to that. And I say I was raised in the 90s, but born in the 70s, or how do I say it? I was like, my parents, I was born in the 90s, but raised in the 70s. That's what I say. Like, it was like I was brought up in, a different time. My parents just raised us like their parents raised them. And I don't know, because there are people who are 10, 15 years older than me that still have this woke, dumb, lazy mentality that everything should be done for them, that you shouldn't say anything that offends anybody. And it's just not how I was raised.
Right. Yeah, no. I mean, like you, I was raised like a latchkey kid, you know? We got thrown outside in the morning. We came home in the afternoon. In the evening when it started getting dark and it was time to eat.
Right.
You know, so it was like, all right, yeah. And I did the same thing with my kids. I was like, yeah, go ahead. But see, that's a huge white pill. Is the kids like we always keep hearing about millennials and this, that, and the other, and where they're at, but the Zoomers, they're on it, dude. Like all 5 of my kids are Zoomers. I talk to them all the time about all kinds of shit. You know, I have never met a more natural agorist than my youngest son. The dude has been spending the last 6 years of his life trying to figure out how to make money any way, shape, or form he can before he's old enough to have a job.
Yeah.
Go for it, dude. Go for it. I don't care. Get suspended from school. Do whatever the fuck you got to do. Go for it. You're like, have fun with it. Enjoy it. And that's what he does. My daughter does similar stuff, you know, like, and so I'm like, there's hope. You meet the guys I met this past weekend in Childeberg, like Cody and Nick and Cotton and Ace and all these young kids that are out there running around. You're like, oh, Jesus, all hope is not lost. It's like there's good guys out there that are like bringing up that next generation of thinkers, right? But, okay. I don't know where I was going with that, but I was going. I was going. So, I want to go ahead and end it, I think, here. So, let's go ahead and plug whatever you got.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, man. We'll have to do another trucker episode on my channel sometime. But yeah, you can catch me. I'm the only Reed Coverdale and the only Naturalist Capitalist out there. So follow me on YouTube and on Spotify. I finally got audio versions at the Naturalist Capitalist. And then I am on Facebook. I don't use it much, Naturalist Capitalist. And then Twitter is where you can keep up with most of what's going on. And I'm at Reed Coverdale on Twitter. Just hit 13,000 followers today. So check me out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had a lot of fun, dude. I think we're both fucking tired tonight. I'm still recovering, man. I'm still like, my brain is still not working as properly as it should because of Childeberg. Like, number one, I needed it so bad, and I didn't know I needed it so bad, but I was so drunk for so long. I don't know if I'll ever get out of this fog. All right, man. I'm going to stop.
If you're gonna play this game of pick and choose, well, it's a game that was made for you to lose. It doesn't really matter how many times, it's the same old worn out stories, same old lines. They're all pointing dirty fingers in hypocrisy, bragging on their feats of mediocrity again. Never really making any kind of change, but they keep on getting re-elected, and I find that strange. That's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedoms. Yeah, I said fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedoms. What's it gonna take for you to see that we're living in a rigged democracy? People stand in line for the thieves that they've been choosing, paying no attention to the rights they keep on losing. But they all gather in the rallies and they chant their names on goddamn well that it's all gonna be the same. of them grinding down their axes. And that's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the times that are taking our freedom. Yeah, fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the times that are taking our freedom. Don't feed them cause we don't even need them. We'll never celebrate the times that are taking our freedom. Fuck them, don't feed them cause we don't even need them. We'll never celebrate the times that are taking